Americans. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Nermeen Sheikh. Welcome to our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. The sentencing hearing for jailed Army Private Bradley Manning begins today, one day after he was convicted of 6 counts of violating the Espionage Act and over a dozen other charges for giving WikiLeaks hundreds of thousands of U.S. diplomatic cables, raw intelligence reports, and videos from the Iraqi and Afghan battlefields and elsewhere. Military Judge Colonel Denise Lind found Manning not guilty on the most serious charge of aiding the enemy, which carried a potential life sentence without parole. Reporters who were in the courtroom say Manning showed no emotion as he stood to hear Judge Lind read the verdict. The sentencing phase of his trial is expected to last at least a week, with more than 20 witnesses set to appear. The 25-year-old Manning faces a maximum of 136 years in prison.
In a statement to The Guardian, Manning's family expressed thanks to his civilian lawyer, David Coombs, who worked on the case, which has now lasted 3 years. An unnamed aunt of Manning said, quote, "While we're obviously disappointed in today's verdicts, we're happy that Judge Lind agreed with us that Brad never intended to help America's enemies in any way. Brad loves his country and was proud to wear its uniform," she wrote. Ben Weisner, director of the ACLU's Speech, Privacy and Technology Project, responded to the verdict Tuesday, saying, quote, "It seems clear that the government was seeking to intimidate anyone who might consider revealing valuable information in the future." Meanwhile, House Intelligence Committee Chair Mike Rogers and Democratic Ranking Member Dutch Ruppersberger issued a joint statement that, quote, "Justice has been served," adding, "There's still much work to be done to reduce the ability of criminals like Bradley Manning and Edward Snowden to harm our national security." Well, today we spend the hour on the Manning verdict and its implications. We begin with Julian Assange, founder and editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks, which published the secret cables obtained by Bradley Manning. According to numerous press reports, the conviction of Manning makes it increasingly likely that the United States will prosecute Assange as a co-conspirator. During the trial, military prosecutors portrayed Assange as an information anarchist who encouraged Manning to leak hundreds of thousands of classified military and diplomatic documents. Julian Assange joins us via Democracy Now! Video stream from the Ecuadorian embassy in London. He took refuge in the embassy in June of 2012 to avoid extradition to Sweden, where he's wanted for questioning around sex assault allegations, but has never been charged. He remains in the embassy there because the British government promises to arrest him if he steps foot on British soil. This is his first interview with a U.S. TV show since the Manning verdict. We welcome you back to Democracy Now!, Julian Assange. What is your response to the verdict?
Thank you, Amy. First of all, I must correct you. I have been given political asylum in this embassy in relationship to the case that is in progress in the United States. It's a common media myth that's put about that my asylum here is in relation to Sweden. It is not. My reaction to the verdict yesterday, well, first of all, really one of surprise in relation to the timing. This is a case that has been going for 3 years, 2 months at trial, over 18 months of interlocutory motions, at least 40,000 pages of judgments and evidence that the judge was required to read, but she has made her decision on 21 separate counts over the weekend. We said at the very beginning of this process that this was a show trial. This is not a trial that where any justice can come about, because the framing of what was possible to debate was set from the very beginning. It was not possible for Bradley Manning's team to say that he was well-intentioned. Motive was taken out of the case. The prosecution has not alleged that a single person came to harm as a result of Bradley Manning's alleged actions. Not a single person. And in fact, no evidence was presented that anyone was indeed harmed. The defence is not allowed to argue that means that these charges should be thrown out. And so what we are left with here is 20 convictions for Bradley Manning. 5 of those are for espionage. This is a case where everyone agrees that Bradley Manning provided the media information about war crimes and politics, some of which was published by the media. There is no allegation that he worked with a foreign power, that he accepted any personal benefit for the disclosures that he engaged in. And yet, we see him being convicted for 5 charges of espionage. It is completely absurd. It cannot possibly be the case that a journalistic source who is not communicating with a foreign power, who is simply working for the American public, can be convicted of 5 counts of espionage. That is a abuse, not merely of Bradley Manning's human rights, but it is an abuse of language, it's abuse of the US Constitution, which says very clearly that Congress will make no law abridging the freedom of the press or of the right to speech. That's clearly being subjugated here.
Julian Assange, you said yesterday that the aiding the enemy charge for which Bradley Manning was acquitted was absurd, and it was put forward, quote, as a red herring, you said. Could you explain what you mean by that?
Well, you will have seen the way WikiLeaks has made its statements today. We have Bradley Manning right now, despite having been acquitted of effectively being a traitor, aiding the enemy. He was acquitted of that, but he faces 136 years in prison, which is more than a life sentence. So this aiding the enemy charge, while it has attracted a lot of people's attention because it has a possible life sentence or death penalty, really it was just part of the extent of overcharging in this case. You know, at the very minimum, perhaps Bradley Manning could have been charged, say, with mishandling classified information. Of course, I think he should be acquitted of such a charge because under the First Amendment and a number of other obligations we all have, he should be free to break one obligation to fulfill another, the higher obligations of exposing crimes and satisfying the Constitution. But where we have aiding the enemy charge soaking up public attention, and many people going, oh, well, look, the justice system is just because it's taken this one out. Actually, this is one charge out of 21 different offences. He's still up for 136 years. The substantive aspect that a alleged journalistic source, pure in their motives as far as there are any allegations for, who received no financial payment, has been now convicted of 5 counts of espionage. That is absurd.
We have to break. We're going to come back to this discussion. We're speaking to Julian Assange, our exclusive interview with him inside the Ecuadorian embassy. He's been granted political asylum by the country of Ecuador, but can't leave the embassy for fear of the British government arresting him. Julian Assange is the founder and editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks. We'll continue with him in a moment.